1. The night was gradually deepening, and the cold wind was howling. I wrapped my coat tightly around me, and my glands were burning. After quickly entering the corridor, I answered the phone. On the phone, there came a milky-voiced complaint. "Dad, if you don't come back, I'll fall asleep soon." I whispered a few words of comfort while keeping an eye on my surroundings. There came the unhurried footsteps behind me again. They had been following me all the way. First, I thought it was someone going in the same direction and didn't pay much attention, until I walked and stopped, and the other person did the same, along with an undeniable scent of pheromones. I stiffened my body and slowed my breathing. I didn't dare to relax for a moment. Taking advantage of the moment when the footsteps stopped, I quickly rushed upstairs. The person behind me followed me closely. With a strong pull, he yanked me back suddenly and imprisoned me in his arms. He put one arm around my waist and the other hand on my chin. The sour pheromones spread out. The familiar voice made me tremble all over. "Mateo, I found you." 2. I instinctively struggled, but he leaned over and pinned me against the wall. Lucas was breathing heavily, and his body temperature was scorching hot, making my body go weak. The strong pheromones invaded the surrounding air, entangling me like a cobweb. As an omega marked by him, I instantly lost the ability to struggle and was pinned against the wall by him and kissed. The fruits I was carrying clattered and fell to the ground. He pried open my teeth, and his lips and tongue entangled with mine forcefully and domineeringly. I frowned and bit him. The smell of blood mixed with the pheromones filled my entire mouth. He held me tightly, giving me the illusion that he was going to devour me. Lucas turned me over so that I was facing away from him. My head was pushed down, exposing my swollen gland. The person behind me suddenly lost control, and the force with which he held me became even stronger. "It hurts?" "Lucas, let go of me. Where's the mark?" Lucas asked coldly with a straight face. "Did you wash off the mark? We've already broken up. What's the use of keeping the mark? Should I keep the mark so that I can't use inhibitors during my heat?" When exposed to the alpha pheromones with a high compatibility, the emerging heat gradually rose. I bit my tongue to keep myself awake. Lucas gasped and kissed me again. I whimpered and lost my senses. I was almost suffocated and didn't even notice when the door beside me opened, until Daniel's voice came. "Dad, what are you doing outside? Why haven't you come in for so long?" Daniel let out an exclamation and covered his eyes with splayed fingers. "Oh, I didn't see anything." The door slammed shut. I suddenly came to my senses and pushed away Lucas, whose actions were becoming more and more excessive. The corners of Lucas's eyes were red, and emotions were surging in his deep eyes. "Mateo, you pushed me away again." His voice was hoarse, full of accusation. There was an ineffaceable grievance on his face. The words I was about to scold were blocked back into my mouth by him. "Forget it. Let's go inside first. If I don't use the inhibitor, I'll go into heat right here." I picked up the things on the ground, opened the door and entered the house. Daniel was standing beside the shoe cabinet, still covering his eyes, but his fingers were splayed wide, and his big eyes were full of curiosity. He put down his hands and looked Lucas in the eyes. Looking up at him, Lucas was leaning against the door frame, sizing him up carefully. "Brother, is he my son or my nephew?" One big and one small were waiting for my answer. Looking at these two faces, I sized them up quietly for a few seconds and secretly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Daniel looks like me. If he looked like someone else, this problem wouldn't have arisen now. "Your nephew." After saying that, I picked up the fruits and went straight to the kitchen. While they were staring blankly at each other, I quickly took a tube of inhibitor. The heat in my body was suppressed. When I turned around, I bumped into Lucas' arms. "Are you so eager to throw yourself into my arms, brother?" There was a teasing smile on his face as he gave a peck on my cheek. "Lucas, don't mess around." As soon as I turned my head, I met Daniel's eyes. He looked innocent and curious. After a few seconds of silence, I coughed lightly and said, "Daniel, this is Uncle Lucas." Daniel obediently greeted him. "Hello, Uncle." He then asked, "Why can Uncle also kiss Daddy?" Lucas' breathing stagnated, and his sharp eyes seemed to pierce Daniel through. Scared, Daniel shrank his neck and ran away at once. Lucas approached step by step, cornering me in front of the kitchen counter. "Why did he say also? Who else would kiss you?" I met Lucas's gaze filled with suppressed anger and swallowed hard. Who else could it be? Of course, it's the kiss-crazy Daniel. He didn't kiss me after coming back today because he was shocked by what he saw at the door. But I won't say it. I just want to see Lucas getting impatient. 3. Unable to get an answer, Lucas became restless, and the hand around my waist tightened constantly. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but think of the past. When my mom and I first entered the Shin family, Lucas was only in his teens. He was very resistant to our arrival. Moreover, he hadn't gone through his secondary gender differentiation yet. The development of his glands often put him in a state of restlessness. Unable to find relief, he couldn't help but lose his temper every day. After losing his temper, he would be scolded by his father. He looked very aggrieved, helpless like a caged beast, thrashing around in the cage. Later, on a stormy and thundery night, I found the turning point to improve my relationship with him. Lucas is afraid of thunder and the dark. The young teenager is concerned about his face and has his eyes red from crying under the quilt. I heard it when I got up to use the toilet at night and thought it was an illusion. It was only when I entered his room that I found out it was him crying. First, Lucas coldly told me to get out, but his voice was trembling terribly. I hesitated for a few seconds, leaned over and hugged him into my arms, releasing soothing pheromones to comfort him. He soon fell into a deep sleep in my arms. After that night, his attitude towards me began to soften. He always followed me around, calling me brother all the time. The Shin family was very surprised by this scene. But the harmonious scene between brothers was something they were happy to see. Until after he became an adult, Lucas differentiated into an alpha. Everything changed. During his susceptible period, Lucas held me tightly in his arms and kissed me again and again. His tongue licked my gland, attempting to bite through the skin. "Lucas, what we're doing is wrong." I panicked and pushed him away, sitting there at a loss. No matter how close we were before, it was only limited to hugs. Instead of being like this now, both the body and pheromones are stuck together. Lucas argued forcefully even though he was in the wrong. What's wrong with it? Brother's body clearly likes me very much too. He bit through the gland and injected his pheromones. I let out a pained groan and arched my body, trembling constantly. It seemed as if I had turned into a sieve, and the alpha pheromones were seeping into my body from all directions. Little by little, they melted my physical strength and eroded my spirit, until I lost consciousness. After that, I clearly rejected him and no longer indulged Lucas like before. Lucas's eyes were red. Instead of getting angry, he smiled. He slowly took out his phone. I looked at him in confusion. The next moment, the ambiguous sounds that made one's face flush and heart race came from the phone. In an instant, a blush spread across my cheeks. I could no longer stay calm. I lunged forward to smash the phone. Lucas quickly dodged me and laughed. "There's nothing I can do. Brother, I knew you would definitely reject me, so I had to keep something for myself first. Lucas, please delete it. If the video got out, I'd be finished. No matter how I explain, others will only think that the stepson of the Shin family is seducing the young master of the Shin family." Lucas agreed very readily. "But brother, you have to promise me. You can only belong to me." Just like this, a year passed in peace. I don't know how to define my relationship with Lucas, but I know that my feelings for him are not pure. I simply let myself sink recklessly. Lucas was even more indulged in it and always clung to me every day. He always tried to mark me completely. He kissed my gland, rubbed his canine teeth against the thin skin, as if he was going to bite through it. In this way, brother will always only belong to me. No, you can't. I refused him again and again. Lucas wasn't angry either. He would just pull me to do several temporary marks with him, until Uncle Lucas arranged a blind date for me. In order not to let myself continue to sink into Lucas, I impulsively agreed to the arrangement. I went to meet that alpha without telling him. Unexpectedly, I was discovered by Lucas. He angrily dragged me out of the restaurant and forced me into heat with his pheromones regardless. We spent 3 days in the hotel, losing track of day and night. When my sanity returned, Lucas' mark had already been branded on me. My ears were filled with my mother's cries and Uncle Lucas scolding. You scoundrel! He's your brother. You even went after your own brother. Lucas, you brute! Lucas, with a palm print on his face, laughed boldly. I've already said he's my brother, so he can only be marked by me. 5. The pheromones in the air became stronger and stronger, pulling my drifting thoughts back. Lucas held me tightly, with such force that it seemed as if he wanted to crush me and embed me into his body. Mateo, what are you spacing out for? I looked up at him and said, It's nothing. After being marked, I never saw Lucas again. He was sent abroad by Grandpa Shung, and I voluntarily left the Shin family. This was the first time I'd seen him in 4 years. He was taller and more mature than before, but some things seemed to have never changed. When he looked at me, there was a glimmer of starlight in his eyes. The air inexplicably became thick, and Lucas got closer and closer. After a moment of eye contact, Daniel suddenly appeared and interrupted us. He huffed and puffed as he squeezed between the two of us, stepped on Lucas's instep, and looked up at me. Dad, you haven't kissed me yet. I bent down and leaned over. With a smooch, Daniel jumped down satisfactorily. Okay, you can continue. I didn't need to answer Lucas's question anymore. Heart from him, only Daniel would kiss me. But Lucas didn't seem to figure out the answer. Instead, he stared at me curiously. He looks quite similar to you. I said to confirm. He's my son, of course. He has to look like me. Lucas idly played with my fingers and asked, You said he's my nephew. Then who is his other father? He looked nonchalant, but his eyes were sharp, as if he had already seen through everything. I lowered my head. My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't think of an answer for a moment. This is a secret I can't tell. If I told it, maybe Daniel wouldn't be able to stay with me anymore. I swallowed hard. You don't need to know. In an instant, the pheromones swept over like a storm. The alpha pressed me against the kitchen counter like a madman. Why isn't it necessary? Mateo, don't forget you're my older brother. Just based on this relationship, I can and must know. He grabbed my jaw, and I was forced to raise my head. The moment our lips touched, a strong sense of aggression descended. Broken sounds spilled from between my lips and teeth, and I couldn't help frowning. After pushing him away, I was out of breath and dizzy. You're afraid to say, Is he my son? I quickly denied it, my voice hoarse and my speech a bit slurred. No, he's a beta I knew when I was in school. 6. Lucas looked completely unconvinced. Fine, call him home and let me have a look. I remained unmoved. He stubbornly stuffed his phone into my hand. You're married and have a son. As your younger brother, I should at least get to know him. Before I could say a word, Daniel shuffled over in his slippers. Dad, why hasn't Dad Fong come yet? Hearing this, Lucas froze in place, looking completely stunned. Even the hand that was holding me loosened. Lucas grabbed Daniel. What did you say? Daniel was startled by him and hid behind my legs. Dad Fong promised to play games with me tonight, but he still hasn't come even though it's almost bedtime. As he said that, Daniel pouted, on the verge of crying. I picked up my phone and took a look. I found that Michael said half an hour ago that he couldn't come because he had something to do. After I told Daniel, he immediately nodded with a disappointed look on his face. He returned to his room dejectedly and prepared to put away his toys. Lucas plopped down beside Daniel. His expression was a bit unnatural, and he asked in a stiff tone, "What to play?" Daniel stood there stunned. Lucas ruffled his chubby little face and said to him, "I'll play with you." Daniel immediately beamed and brought over the Chinese checkers. I thought Lucas would have no patience with Daniel and was worried that he would make Daniel cry the next second. Unexpectedly, after half an hour, the big one and the little one got along very harmoniously. Daniel lay on the floor and softly pleaded with him not to capture his game pieces. Lucas laughed out loud and kept promising him. 7. I let out a sigh of relief and turned around to enter the bedroom. Since meeting Lucas, my tense body finally relaxed. The suppressed heat and restlessness, however, came back in full force right after. The sweet smell of snow pears gradually filled the entire room. I lay in bed, and Lucas's figure involuntarily emerged in my mind. I yearned for the soothing of an alpha's pheromones. I reached my hand under the quilt in a self-defeating manner, but I couldn't get any relief no matter what. Instead, it became even more intense. In a daze, I was embraced in a warm embrace. I instinctively cried out, "Lucas!" Lucas touched my swollen and red gland, with a smile on his face. "Brother, you're in heat. Aren't you? Were you thinking about me just now?" I woke up as if from a dream and suddenly pulled back from his embrace. "Get out." I was so ashamed and angry that I felt like dying. I turned my back to him, blushing from head to neck. Lucas hugged me from behind. His lips and tongue wandered over my body, leaving gentle kisses. "Brother, where's your beta partner? You're in heat. Aren't you going to call him back? How about your younger brother, give you a hand?" His successive words left me completely blank-minded. All I know is that he has the alpha pheromone I'm most craving right now. The familiar pheromone gradually makes my reason totter. Lucas turns his head to look at me, and his hand is grabbed by me. "Brother, what do you want me to do?" I don't say a word, just tightly clench his hand, and there's no next move for a long time. He glances at me and takes the initiative to hug me even tighter. The smell of snow pear suddenly becomes even sweeter. Lucas rests his chin on my shoulder. Without warning, his canine teeth pierce the skin. I'm so pained that my body tenses up, and the sheets are wrinkled by my grip. Continuous pheromones are injected, and the gland becomes swollen. Enough, Lucas, stop. I can hardly sit on my knees, and my waist is weak. Lucas holds my waist and leans on my back, gasping for breath. Scalding liquid trickles down. The drip's on me, making me tremble all over. "What's wrong with you?" As soon as he came, he made the effect of my inhibitor decline. I haven't even cried yet. Why is he crying? Lucas chokes with sobs and says, "Don't worry about it." I lowered my head and ignored him, immersing myself in this familiar pheromone. After that, I lay on the sofa in a daze and tightened my pajamas. Lucas threw the changed sheets into the washing machine. Looking at his back, I suddenly thought of 4 years ago. I was so scared that I sat up instantly and looked around. I didn't see what I was looking for. The more I thought about it, the more scared I became. I was so panicked that my heart was about to jump out of my throat. If he does that again this time, what does he want me to do again? While I was thinking, Lucas came back. I took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. "Come on, where did you hide the camera this time? What are you going to threaten me with again?" The satisfied smile on Lucas's face instantly froze. "Mateo, is this how you think of me?" I twitched the corner of my mouth. "Otherwise, what do you think?" I still have lingering fears about the scene when he showed the video 4 years ago. Before that, I never thought of him like this. Our eyes met, and a flash of hurt crossed Lucas's eyes. He knelt down beside the bed on one knee, leaned into my arms, and whispered a promise. "Brother, I won't do that again. I deleted the previous video a long time ago. I'm sorry, brother." I woke up the next day. The alpha pheromone beside me was overpowered by a warm, milky fragrance. I turned over and buried my head in Daniel's soft belly. Daniel giggled and said, "Tickles," but obediently let me lean on him. After hugging him and taking a big whiff, I asked him where Lucas was. Daniel pointed outside and said, "He's hanging the sheets." I looked in the direction of his chubby little hand. Sure enough, I saw a tall figure standing on the balcony. Lucas was clumsy in his movements, and the sheets he hung up were all wrinkled. Sensing our gazes, he turned his face and smiled, then tried hard to smooth out the wrinkles. After hanging up the sheets, Lucas came in, unceremoniously pushed Daniel aside, and lay down beside me. "Are you still feeling bad, brother?" Hearing this, Daniel rushed over in a hurry, sticking out his little bottom. "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Both the big one and the little one had worried looks on their faces. Suddenly, I found that they still looked quite alike. I pursed my lips and lowered my eyes to hide my emotions. "I'm fine." Daniel let out a loud "oh" and threw himself into my arms. Lucas wasn't willing to be outdone and curled up his body to squeeze in too. "Get out of the way. I want to lean on Dad." "No way. I also want to lean on Big Brother." The two of them almost squeezed me into mincemeat. "Lucas, Daniel, both of you calm down." The two who were competing with each other stopped simultaneously and glared at each other. Daniel was small and couldn't out-squeeze the strong and childish alpha. He grabbed his hair, and his little face was full of confusion. "Dad, why can he also sleep in your bed and let you hold him?" "Because..." I was suddenly at a loss for words and didn't know how to answer Daniel. If I said Lucas was my younger brother, well, which brothers still lie in each other's arms at such an age? But if I said he was my alpha, Lucas would surely take advantage of it. Seeing that I didn't answer, Daniel was so anxious that he paced around. "Because of what, Dad?" Lucas laughed smugly. "Of course it's because I'm your dad's alp." Night. Before Lucas finished speaking, Michael's voice came from the entrance. "Where is Xiaobao?" Daniel's eyes suddenly lit up. He ignored Lucas and rushed over. "Dad Fong, Xiaobao misses you so much." Daniel threw himself into Michael's arms and was hugged and kissed by him. Lucas' smile froze, listening to the conversation between the two outside. His face became even more ashen. He turned to look at me and asked through gritted teeth, "Is he the beta you mentioned? Mateo, are you really married?" I nodded without hesitation. "Yes, that's right. Do you want to see the photos?" I asked casually, picking up the phone on the bedside table. Without waiting for Lucas to answer, I straightforwardly found the artistic photos taken last year when Daniel celebrated his birthday and Michael accompanied the two of us. Coincidentally, Michael and I took a few photos with more intimate gestures at that time. Lucas flipped through the photos in disbelief. He murmured, "It's impossible. Brother, you must be lying to me." "Why would I lie to you?" I reached out to take back the phone and put it away, afraid that he would flip to other photos. Lucas sank his face, and the pheromones floating in the air gradually became restless. The complete marking was washed away 4 years ago, but the innate instinct of the omega made my body go weak, and I was pressed on the bed by Lucas. I struggled a few times, and Lucas simply pressed his knee against my leg. I hated my own weakness, and at the same time, I couldn't resist his approach. Their fingers intertwined. Lucas lowered his head and kissed him. The voices of Daniel and Michael came faintly. "Little Bao, where's your dad? Why can't I see him?" Daniel hurriedly whispered to Michael mysteriously, "Dad Fong, I saw Dad kissing someone at the door yesterday and bringing him home." He then softly complained to Michael that someone was competing with him for his dad. I suddenly came to my senses and gave a hard kick, kicking Lucas, who was pressing on me, off the bed, his chest heaving violently. I sat up dizzily with a pounding head. It was okay to lose control once last night, but just now I almost lost control again. I leaned against the headboard of the bed and took a deep breath to calm my heart rate. Hearing the noise in the room, Daniel quickly poked his head inches. He looked at Lucas lying sprawled on the floor and then at me. Daniel clapped his hands with admiration on his face. Dad, you're so amazing. Michael followed closely behind. He picked up Daniel and sternly questioned, "What are you two doing?" Lucas paused in the act of getting up, his eyes shifting between me and Michael. He replied, "I'm catching up with my elder brother." "And you are? So you're the younger brother." Michael smiled. "I'm Mateo's." He paused for a moment, and only said after making eye contact with me, "Partner." The smile on his face gradually faded. Lucas had a cold look on his face and an unfriendly tone. Then, "Dear sister-in-law, my brother and I haven't seen each other for 4 years. We have a lot to talk about. Don't you mind giving us some space?" Michael looked at me helplessly with his eyes for advice. I silently gestured behind Lucas for him to take Daniel away. 10. The door closed with a click. Lucas angrily pushed me onto the bed, almost pressing his whole body weight on me. It was so heavy that I let out a muffled groan. "Get off me. I don't want to." Lucas loosened his strength a little. "What kind of heat can a beta accompany you through? You don't even know how you were last night." I quickly covered his mouth to stop him from going on. "Lucas, what's wrong with a beta? I've managed to get through all these years like this." After I finished speaking, the anger in Lucas's eyes disappeared completely. Instead, there was a deep sense of grievance. "So, you want to abandon me again, don't you? You left without saying goodbye 4 years ago. Now that I've finally found you, you're driving me away." He hugged me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. I tried to defend myself. I didn't. Tears welled up in his eyes. Lucas choked with sobs and interrupted me, accusing me, "You were still clinging to me last night. Now that you don't need me anymore, you're saying you have a partner. Mateo, I'm going to sue you at the Omega Federation." Tears streamed down his face non-stop. His downturned mouth looked exactly like Daniel's when he cried. It made me can't help but soften my heart. But my current life reminds me, not only did our relationship not receive blessings, but it also met with strong opposition. For years ago, after Lucas's grandfather learned that we had marked each other, he was so angry that he was hospitalized. He glared at me furiously and cursed me, saying I was shameless and seduced his grandson. He also threatened Uncle Lucas to drive me and my mother out of the Shin family. My mother had an unfortunate first half of her life with my alcoholic and gambling-addicted father. After the divorce, she finally managed to live a stable life. I can't ruin it for her because of myself. After recuperating for a while, I voluntarily promised Grandpa Shin that I wouldn't be with Lucas anymore, and that I wouldn't step into the Shin family on my own initiative from then on. After some consideration, Grandpa Shin agreed. He had someone take me to remove the mark, sent me away, and erased my whereabouts. So Lucas and I met again. It was 4 years later. Today, 11. My thoughts were in a mess. I simply didn't know how to give the response Lucas wanted. I sighed silently and reached out to wipe away his tears. "Lucas, go back first. Let's calm down for a while." Lucas looked dejected and spoke in a low voice. "What about after the cooling off period? I won't be able to find you again, right?" I softly assured him, "No, I'll definitely still be here when you come." Lucas stared deeply at me for quite a while. Then he went out without saying a word. Daniel ran over and locked the door from the inside. "Dad, he's being mean to the door. Don't let him come anymore. Xiaobao is right." Michael picked up the angry little guy. He pulled me aside, asked about what had happened yesterday, frowned, and made suggestions as he thought of things. "How about we get married tomorrow? Maybe then he'll stop pestering you." The memory of him marking me 4 years ago because I went on a blind date flashed through my mind. I shook my head at Fong Su. "He won't. If I got married to Michael, who knows what uncontrollable things he might do. Moreover, I'm even more afraid that he'll do something to Fong Su." "Forget it, Michael. He won't do anything to me. It's not to the point where I have to avoid Lucas. I proposed to leave back then only because of old Master Sheng. I was afraid that my mom would lose her peaceful life. Over the years, I've always kept in touch with my mom. She is doing very well now and will also come to see me and Daniel occasionally. There is nothing that can make me afraid anymore. 12. The next day. There is a familiar pheromone floating in the corridor. It is not strong, but it's very noticeable. I looked towards the corner. There stood a familiar figure. Seeing me looking over, that person even hid further into the darkness, thinking he was being very inconspicuous. I took out my keys to open the door and casually asked, "What are you standing there for?" "Feeding the mosquitoes, brother." Lucas walked over slowly and hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry. I was wrong 4 years ago, and I was also wrong last night. Can I come to see you again?" I forcefully pried his hands off my waist. "You've already come to see me, haven't you?" Not only did he come, but he also hugged me as soon as he arrived. Pushing him away, I opened the door and entered the house to change my shoes. Lucas remained unmoved, stared at my toes, and pitifully asked, "Then can I come in?" After saying that, he walked in on his own. I followed him into the house. Just as I was about to close the door, Lucas turned around again. "I forgot to get something." After saying that, he quickly snatched the keys hanging on the wall from me and walked towards the corner. Soon he came back carrying several big bags of things. I didn't forget to remind him. The keys. Lucas reluctantly hung the keys back. He clung to me and hugged me again. "Brother, I miss you so much." He affectionately rubbed against my cheek and tentatively brushed past my lips. "Is it okay, brother?" Without waiting for my answer, Lucas eagerly leaned over to kiss me. I couldn't dodge in time and let him succeed. I put my hand on his chest. Before I could push, he voluntarily let go of me. "Sorry, I can't control myself when I see you." I gave him a piercing look and angrily turned around. "Then don't come in." When Daniel saw him, he pouted so much that it could hold an oil pot. "You, how come?" Lucas stuffed a toy into his arms. It exactly suited Daniel's taste. Daniel swallowed back his words and looked at the new toy again and again. Although he was angry with Lucas, he couldn't bear not to accept it. Finally, he said awkwardly, "Thank you, Uncle." Lucas carried the remaining bags into the kitchen. He volunteered, "Brother, I'll cook dinner tonight." The next second, Lucas's shocked voice came from inside. "What are you doing here?" Michael put the water cup down heavily. "Shouldn't I be the one asking you this, Mr. Lucas? I'm the partner of Matteo. Where else should I be if not here?" Lucas was momentarily speechless and silently complained to me aggrievedly. Seeing him being at a loss, I couldn't help laughing out loud and pulled Michael out of the kitchen. Michael didn't forget to leave another sentence. "Do a good job, little brother. If it doesn't taste good, Matteo won't keep you here." 13. When Lucas put the braised prawns on my plate for the third time, Michael couldn't help intercepting them into my bowl. Lucas stared at him. "What are you doing? Can't you pick them up for yourself if you want to eat?" Michael sneered and put on disposable gloves to peel the prawns. "What do you know? Matteo doesn't like to eat unpeeled prawns. Brother used to eat them. I can't bear to see him like them but having to peel them himself. I always peel them for him myself." Lucas looked at me, eagerly waiting for me to confirm. Michael winked at me frantically. Well, I nodded. "I don't like them. Xiaobao doesn't like it either." Daniel looked at Lucas expectantly with a beaming face. Lucas immediately took over Michael's job and shelled the nuts tirelessly. Halfway through the meal, Michael was suddenly called away by a phone call. There was an undeniable joy in Lucas's eyes. After seeing Michael out, he imitated Daniel and locked the door from the inside. "Is my cooking good? It's delicious, right?" Daniel's face was greasy from eating. "It's not as delicious as what Uncle Fong cooks." "Is it really not delicious, brother?" He looked like he was seeking praise, with his eyes all moist. He often used to look at me like this before, expecting a word of praise from me. "It's delicious." As the night deepened, Lucas showed no sign of leaving. After playing with Daniel with the toys, Daniel reminded him, "Uncle, Dad and I are going to sleep. Lucas froze all over and replied sullenly, "Got it." He turned around and came to me, reaching his hand around my waist and encircling me. "Brother, can I stay? There's a power outage at my place. You know, I've been afraid of the dark since I was a kid." To prove it, he even showed me the surveillance footage of his home. It was completely dark. While brushing my teeth, I said, "There's no place for you to sleep. I can sleep on the floor." I didn't say a word and continued brushing my teeth. Lucas lowered his head and sniffed the pheromones carefully, saying softly, "Brother, I've noticed." "Huh? You were just lying to me." Lucas stared at me and him in the mirror, standing close together. There are no traces of a third person living in this house at all. There are just two sets of everything, one big and one small. I never expected him to observe so meticulously. I almost swallowed the toothpaste foam. After rinsing my mouth, I stammered and asked, So what? It's true that Michael has been with me all these years. I didn't lie to you about this." Lucas stopped his movement, his expression turning gloomy. "Sorry, brother. I'll accompany you and Xiaobao from now on." His voice got a bit nasal. He asked carefully, "Brother, can I apply to be the third person living here?" 14. After I got a quilt for Lucas and went back to the room, I found Daniel still wide awake. "Dad." Daniel crawled into my arms with hands and feet, whispering, "Is Uncle my other dad, right?" I was stunned and hugged Daniel, not expecting him to guess so quickly. However, I didn't plan to keep it from him anymore. "Yes, he is." Daniel's eyes widened. "Why did you separate? Did he do something wrong?" I neither denied nor affirmed, choosing my words carefully. It's not exactly that he did something wrong. It's more that he had no choice. If Lucas and I hadn't been stepbrothers at that time, maybe we wouldn't have separated. But if we weren't stepbrothers, how could we have possibly met? Without this relationship, we are simply from different worlds. Daniel tilted his head, his big eyes full of confusion. He scratched his hair and said to me apologetically, "Dad, I seem to not understand. It doesn't matter. You just need to enjoy his love for you. Does Uncle know?" "He doesn't know yet." Daniel went shoo and said, "Let's not let him know for now." 15. By the next day, Lucas said calmly that there was a water outage at home and asked me to keep him here. Only then did I belatedly remember. He said there was a power outage at home last night. How could he have shown me the surveillance footage? I was about to confront him, but seeing Daniel having so much fun playing Chinese checkers with him, I stopped. Forget it. Let him stay if he wants. Anyway, as long as he's willing to sleep on the sofa. Gradually, both Daniel and I got used to Lucas's presence. We even regarded him as part of the family here. If Lucas doesn't come for a single day, Daniel keeps nagging in my ear, "Dad, why hasn't Uncle Lucas come yet? Is he angry because we didn't tell him something?" I look up at the clock not far away. The hands of the clock point to 8 of the clock. Usually, Lucas would have already been here by now. If he has something to do and can't come, he would tell me in advance. But now, there's not a single bit of news from him. I comfort Daniel while calling Lucas. I make call after call, and it's not until the 5th call that it gets answered. Lucas's voice sounds dull and a bit hoarse. "Brother, I've caught a cold. I won't come over today. I'm afraid I'll infect you guys." After saying that, there are also a few coughs. "Have you seen a doctor? Have you taken any medicine? Is it serious?" Lucas's voice trembles as he replies weakly, "It's not serious. The post on my mother's WeChat moments shows that she's gone on a trip with Uncle Lucas." Thinking that Lucas is now suffering from a cold and enduring it alone at home, a feeling of sourness gradually well up in my heart. "Where are you?" he asks excitedly. "Brother, are you coming to see me?" I grunt in agreement. I can't just leave him suffering after knowing about it. Lucas seems to be infused with energy and no longer looks listless as before. "Brother, then come here quickly. The door password is your birthday." 16. After leaving Daniel with Michael, I rushed to Lucas' place. The door unlocked with a beep. The surging pheromones hit me head-on. It made my gland throb a few times. Whose alpha's pheromones are still so strong when having a cold. I tentatively called him a few times before Lucas' voice came from the bedroom. "Brother, I'm here." The quilt bulged into a lump. Lucas' cheeks were flushed as he poked his head out from inside. When I slightly lifted the quilt, there were still several pieces of clothes hidden inside. I took a closer look. Weren't these the clothes I couldn't find at home a few days ago? "Are you sure? You have a cold?" I looked at Lucas suspiciously. The pheromones in the air were so strong and thick that they almost soaked me through. "Lucas, are you in your susceptible period?" Lucas slowly nodded his head and whispered, "Brother, I'm sorry. I lied to you. My susceptible period has come. I've taken an inhibitor, but I still feel so miserable." He hugged my clothes and took a deep sniff, hiding listlessly under the quilt. I stood by the bed, with two little voices arguing in my mind. One told me to help Lucas. The other told me not to be soft-hearted and run away quickly. Lucas remained silent, looking up at me. After much hesitation, I gave inches. "Well, I'll stay with you." Lucas stared at me in disbelief with wide-open eyes and sat up, clutching the quilt. "Brother." He blushed and stammered, "And no, it's not necessary. It's only fair." I pretended to be calm and whispered, "You helped me last time, didn't you? But brother, I don't want this kind of reciprocation." Lucas looked at me intently. "You know what I want." "Lucas, I don't know." I murmured and lowered my eyes, nervously pinching the corner of the quilt. Lucas grabbed my wrist and pulled me closer. Our breaths mingled, but he didn't move any closer. "Brother, would you reciprocate like this with other alphas?" I shook my head without hesitation. "Of course not. How could I do such things with other alphas?" Even though Lucas forced me at the beginning. But because it was him, I half-heartedly agreed. Lucas smiled. "So, you're actually like me, don't you? There's no need to think about it." The answer is definitely yes. Otherwise, why would I have let myself sink into it and chosen to give birth to Daniel? I simply leaned forward and blocked his lips, not giving him a chance to speak again. Why think so much? Just do it. 17. By the time Lucas's susceptible period ended, it was already afternoon the next day. I woke up in Lucas's arms. The latter was staring at me in a daze, his eyes filled with deep tenderness and satisfaction. Seeing me wake up, he asked cautiously, "Brother, you said you wouldn't be with anyone else. So Daniel is my son, right?" I nodded, unable to hold back a smile. "Silly, even Xiaobao had already guessed it. Only you didn't know. I just didn't dare to think." He mumbled aggrievedly. After learning that Daniel was his son, Lucas couldn't wait to urge me to go out and pick up our son. "Weren't you eager to send him to Michael's place a while ago? It's different now." When we arrived at Michael's house, Michael opened the door. Daniel was nowhere to be seen. Michael was slightly stunned for a second when he saw me and Lucas. "Are you two back together?" Lucas nodded frantically beside me, afraid that others wouldn't know. "Where's Xiaobao?" "He's sleeping," Michael shouted back. "Alexander, bring Xiaobao out." After a while, a tall alpha carried Daniel out. He stuffed Daniel into Lucas's arms. "Take him away quickly. Taking care of him has exhausted me." Lucas hugged Daniel tightly, his voice full of pride. "I wouldn't even let you enjoy this kind of tiredness." Alexander closed the door forcefully with a dark face. Daniel was woken up by the sound of the door closing and opened his eyes in a daze. "Dad?" He turned his face to look for me. Lucas responded very simply, "Yes, Dad is holding the little one." Daniel was stunned for a second. "Dad? Does he know?" "Yes, Dad told him." I walked beside Lucas and couldn't help pinching Daniel's flushed cheeks from sleep. "Dad?" Daniel looked at Lucas and then at me. "Dad?" He beamed and leaned on Lucas's shoulder, like a wound-up little puppet. He kept shouting at the two of us without any sign of fatigue. In the setting sun, the shadows of the family of three were stretched long as they walked together intimately.